All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 45 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. Jeremy and Clark Palmer here with you. It's Sunday, almost 4 p.m. Eastern time. So, this is one of those things where I see all these sports shows the last, 2 or 3 weeks have tried to find topics. And everybody's going to lean into the NFL, obviously, because camps are starting and all of that stuff. So we're making do with what we can.
It's still a very slow period. It's just waiting for college football, waiting for the NFL. So
we still got about a month to go before everything really heats up.
Yeah.
Into prime time, but. What was interesting this week, and so every week, sports writer named Mike Sando releases his quarterback tiers. So what he does is he talks to 50 people that work inside the NFL, and then they tell him, where they have the quarterbacks ranked.
Right.
And so it's pretty interesting because this isn't some sports writers list and opinion. It's
not his list. I mean, he's just compiling it basically.
Right. Yeah. It's not it's not his opinion. This is, 50 people inside the NFL, GMs, scouts, players, so they can tell him what it is. And so it's usually a pretty good idea. You get a pretty good idea from that. I think, as far as, ranking players, this is probably one of the best things that comes out every year because it's really legit. So he had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks in Tier 1. So Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Josh Allen.
Briefly, just before we go into
go ahead.
Overall, what was your kind of general thought about the whole thing when you just the entire thing as a whole?
Well, and I was kind of comparing it to when we did this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty accurate. I think they're pretty tough on it. I think, there may be a couple of guys that are in a lower tier that you might be able to get into a higher tier, but we're splitting hairs. Like the guy barely making it into, at the top of Tier 3, maybe you could say it's the bottom of Tier 2. But I think it's pretty accurate for what I would do especially if I was running a team.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. You want to go through the first?
Yeah, yeah. So the first 6 are Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, in that order. So we got Herbert and Burrow are in Tier 1, and they've only played two seasons. So that's kind of interesting, but it just kind of shows you that's where when we watch those guys and we're viewing them a certain way. Well, the NFL views them the same way.
Yeah. See, and the thing is, I think some people could get into a whole, they ranked Aaron Rodgers 1, and I'm just like, well, I get kind of annoyed with when people actually do the rankings in a specific order, because I just think it's kind of, especially in Tier 1, it's kind of splitting hairs. But, I know he had, what was it? It was Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady, then Josh Allen. I would put Brady maybe a little bit lower just because of his age, and, I question against really good teams at this point in his career how, he's not necessarily as good, but he's still really good. I mean, he still had a great year last year. So again, it's kind of splitting hairs. I would put Mahomes and Josh Allen 1 and 2, or you could flip it, whatever you want to do. I'm kind of cool with that. Herbert, I guess I'm fine with. I mean, I feel like they missed the playoffs because his idiot coach kept going for it on 4th down when he didn't need to go for it on 4th down. And I guess you put Herbert above Burrow. Okay. Herbert's probably more, I get maybe Herbert's bigger and he's probably more athletic, even though Burrow can move pretty well too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm basically fine with that. I think and I guess we can get into Tier 2. I would have put Stafford in Tier 1. And when Sando was on Colin Cowherd, he was talking about, well, we don't think that Stafford can just totally carry a team. And I'm kind of like, are you saying that all these other quarterbacks are just totally carrying the team like every week? Like, I think you could make that argument, but I think it's a little more complicated than that. But
I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable because if you look at those 6 guys, I think those guys, they could carry a team that's not that good to the playoffs. First of all, Brady did it in his last year in New England. That team wasn't very good, and he got him into the playoffs. We know Mahomes and Allen, Herbert, Burrow, we know they can do it. And to me, I don't think – how many times has Green Bay had just unbelievable offensive talent? They're good, but it's not like, oh, my goodness.
Okay, that's fair, yeah.
So I think that's legit. Now, the Stafford argument I get.
I mean, I am splitting hairs a little bit. It's kind of fine. Right. He's in tier 2, right?
Yeah, I get it, but I also, he also did take the Lions to the playoffs a few times. So it's not like Stafford is not capable of taking, and I don't think, I also think in sports we don't give enough credit to taking your team from good to great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, you can take your team from bad to making the playoffs, but the difference between the Rams without Stafford and with him, like, there's a difference. Like you can tell. Yes, did the Rams need their defense to really carry them in some of those games? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but Burrow needed his defense too.
Right.
So right. But again, it gets. I don't want to get too. It does get into splitting hairs. I think overall, like we said at the beginning, I think overall they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll just go through tier 2. So it was Matthew Stafford was first in tier 2. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, and Matt Ryan. So I think, Colin Cowherd made the argument that Justin Herbert didn't make the playoffs and Stafford won the Super Bowl. So why don't you have, and so I get it. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, we're splitting hairs. I think there's probably 3 or 4 guys you could make an argument that when they're playing well, they're tier 1, right? Stafford, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I think Lamar Jackson. You could even get into the Derek Carr conversation.
You could make that.
But yeah, I think it's fair. If you're only going to put 6 guys, you got to leave somebody out.
Right, and Russell Wilson, like I know, obviously Colin loves, he swears by him, but I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. I mean, I think we were talking about this like when we were doing our rankings a couple weeks ago. Like, I think after a month or 2 of this season, I could be like, okay, Russell Wilson, I'll put him in that top group. Just because he kind of. And I'm saying he had a down year last year, but then I actually looked at his stats and like they were pretty damn good for playing 14 games. I mean, he was injured for a few games, so
yeah. And the argument about carrying the team kind of falls in there, right? Seattle wasn't very good, and Russell Wilson could only take them so far. So if you're saying tier 1 is you can carry your team to the playoffs, then you have a legit argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
same thing with Lamar Jackson. You could say that they've built the entire team around him.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty good. I can't imagine that, but all of those guys I just named, they all have big contracts.
Yeah.
Like they should, or big contracts or rookie contracts. They just haven't gotten to them yet, as they should. So when it starts, I think it's honestly like the tier 1, tier 2. That's really not the interesting part of the rankings. The interesting part of the rankings is 3 and 4.
Yeah,
that's where it becomes a barrel of everybody's opinion because you could make an argument for basically anybody. So I'm just going to read off tier 3 here. So Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Tannehill, Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, and Jameis Winston. Right off the bat, I looked at Jameis Winston and I went, "Ooh, man, I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot of teams that are really dying to make him their starter."
Right.
But it's all the guys that we talk about that are basically interchangeable, right? Kirk Cousins, Garoppolo, Tannehill, Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield. It's all those guys that we talk about that are like, all right, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, this is splitting hairs. They had Matt Ryan last in tier 2, and I'm like,
Right.
you could put him in tier 3 at this point.
Right.
Like, because I kind of look at, now granted, Matt Ryan's won an MVP and he's been to the Super Bowl, but I mean, so is Jimmy Garoppolo. So yeah. I mean, I'm basically fine with that. I mean, I think they have Dak Prescott ranked too high. I might have put him in tier 3. But
yeah, because we hear all the time him and Kirk Cousins have basically the same stats. So I find that interesting that they have Dak Prescott 11th ahead of Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, and Matt Ryan.
I think that's a Cowboys bump, I guess.
And
maybe
they have, and they have, what we're saying, Kirk Cousins is 15th. So I mean, it's you could definitely make the argument. I do think.
Well, and all these guys in tier 3, I feel like a lot of these guys will have, especially like Garoppolo, Tannehill, Cousins, hell, even Carson Wentz at times will have games where you're like, man, that was really good, but it's not something that they sustain all the time. And also, you don't want to, week in and week out, you don't want to be relying on them to win you the game.
Yeah, they have a low ceiling. Like, that's one thing you can say it's in common with all of these guys. They are capable of playing well, but their ceiling of what they really are is pretty low. And when you have Mac Jones 18th, and listen, if you told the Patriots, all right, you're going to take this guy with the 15th pick, and he's going to be the 18th best quarterback in the NFL, would they take that? They probably would.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where it becomes a problem when you're not on a rookie contract anymore.
Right.
And you're paying out the nose for, but it seems, and then some of these guys are projects that you're hoping work out, the Baker Mayfield and now Carson Wentz is on a new team, so.
Yeah. Well, like Ryan Tannehill, he's not making, I mean, he's making a good contract, but it's not, he's not making $50 million a year. I mean, I think he's making 35,
30, yeah,
38, something like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And, you got Jimmy Garoppolo at 16th, and he may not even play this year and might be on a new team. So it's funny kind of how this works there. I feel like they're kind of doing this irrespective of what team you're on. Like, I don't think it's related to who they play with. I think they're just evaluating them straight up.
Right.
But, yeah, there's a few of these guys who they could end up in tier 4 depending on how this year goes. Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and Jameis Winston. They could end up in the next tier. Yeah. But it's kind of like if your starting quarterback is one of these guys, you're like, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay. We need to do better, but he's okay.
Right.
And then tier 4 was so that we're starting with number 25. So Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Davis Mills, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Daniel Jones, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky, and Drew Lock. So, let's first of all,
I mean, some of this is it's weird. Some of this is unknown because Justin Fields just has not played that much. They ranked Trevor Lawrence in tier 3, but it's like, I don't know what to make of last year. Last year was a mess.
But they do have film. They do have a lot of film on him now.
That's true.
So they do have some decent amount of stuff they can look at. You're right. With Justin Fields, it's just not enough to really make a full evaluation. And let's since we're Dolphins fans, all the Tua lovers out there telling us how fantastic he is. If we told you he's the 26th best quarterback, would you be satisfied with that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
And this isn't just some talking head spouting off stuff. This is people who work in the league who are telling you this is what we think of this guy. Now, what's funny is he could end up in tier 3 next year because if he has a better statistical year and they make the playoffs, then I think, you could kind of, and that might happen. I'm not, part of me doesn't want it to happen, but it actually might happen.
Yeah, he's only 2 spots away from being in tier 3 as it is now. So, these guys are they're either young with big time question marks or they're basically about, they're going to be backups. Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky, those are basically
Trey Lance, we don't really know yet. He hasn't really played,
Right. So yeah, the top six guys in that tier: Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Davis Mills, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. They're all like, all right, we're waiting to see. We're trying to figure out.
Daniel Jones, we're kind of like, we're kind of waiting, but we kind of know. But
yeah, he's probably getting this season, maybe less than this season, to prove himself, or it's all over with.
Right.
So basically what he's saying here is that, and then when you go to tier 5, he's basically saying once you're tier 5, like, you're best suited as a backup. So they just had Geno Smith in there, which,
he gets his own tier.
Which, yeah, was kind of interesting. But I don't know how you could have, like, I don't know, some of these guys, I don't know. But they are rating the guys who are projected to be starters. Marcus Mariota probably going to start for Atlanta.
Right.
Mitch Trubisky probably going to start for Pittsburgh. So yeah, I didn't, I just think it
is interesting just to hear from people who work in the league what they actually think of these, of these different guys, so.
Right. Yeah, I think, and they say in this article that, Stafford could be a tier 1 if he does that again this season. Like, he's probably going to be listed in tier 1. So it sounds like that there is definitely keeping an eye on it. But so this is just to read this. It's 50 NFL coaches and executives. So this is, and of those 50, 6 general managers, 8 head coaches, 10 evaluators, 12 coordinators, 6 quarterback coaches, and 7 executives. So these are people that make these decisions for a living, giving you these options anonymously. So let's go right where we need to go, which is let's talk about the Dolphins. Let's talk about the team that we care about. Did
you see the video of the 65-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill in practice? No, I'm not talking about the really old one. This just happened. Like, I think just
I haven't seen it.
They're scrimmaging. I think they were scrimmaging against another team. And someone had their phone out in the stands, and they're filming it, and, like, he drops back, Tua steps up, and he chucks the ball. I don't know how long it was in the air, but it ended up being like a 65-yard touchdown. It actually looked pretty nice. Now, again, it's practice, so let's not, it's a scrimmage. Let's not get all nuts about it. But, it looked nice.
So you texted me earlier this week, a few days ago, and you said that you're rooting for the Dolphins to stink this year. And so I'll give you the floor.
Well, yeah, so I think I've softened my stance a little bit. Is there a way to get the best of both worlds? Like, have your cake and eat it too? Like, can we get they don't make the playoffs, but they finish like 9-8, and we get some exciting games where Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill make some plays, and it's kind of, their offense is kind of fun to watch, but we're still kind of with Tua, like, not just the fans, but even the teams, like, we don't really know. And then maybe that Tua gets another year, but we're not sure if he's going to get another contract. Okay? Because my whole thing is, I don't want him to get another contract, because then we're just going to be in no man's land for 4 or 5 more years until they get bad again, and then they try to draft another quarterback. So, I'm kind of, can we get the best of both worlds? Maybe, because their schedule, and I think we talked about this, their schedule doesn't look that easy. I mean, they could start the season off 0-4 or 1-3. I mean, like, it could be, that could be a really difficult start to the year. So,
yeah, I think, there's the schedule does not lend itself to the Dolphins having a great year. So I've kind of gone back and forth. I mean, listen, my best guess, right, as to what's going to happen, right, based on everything that has happened this year is, what I've said before on this podcast is, I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think that the Dolphins have put everything into this season. They tried to improve the offensive line. They made the Tyreek Hill trade. They, changed coaches. They're going to be more offensive. Like, they're trying to do all of these things where it's like, all right, we got to win. We got to do something this year. We can't be, so that makes me think it's going to be really hard for them to be bad. You know, would I like to sit here and root for them to be bad because that's the only way for us to, you know, actually achieve something, is for the Dolphins to get a high enough draft pick to, you know, get another quarterback? Yeah, that would be great. But the problem is I just don't see any way that they're going to be that bad. You know?
Yeah, they do have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. So, you know, I still maintain that not having Flores there calling the plays is going to be a problem, and they also don't have that stretch in the middle of their schedule like they did last year where they could just rattle off 8 wins against, you know, basically bad teams. So I feel like I don't think could their defense be as good as last year? Maybe. Could it be potentially a little worse? Yeah. And I think that could be bad because I don't know how much we can rely on their offense, particularly the offensive line. Like, you know, they didn't improve all of their offensive line. So, I mean, if that doesn't work and they can't run the ball, then all bets are off. But yeah, I guess I tend to agree with you. Like, they put a lot into it. It seems like they should be, at the very least, finished like they finished last year with a similar record or maybe one game better. But I mean, just put it this way. I mean, I'm looking at sort of the long range view, and it's, you know, I guess maybe it would be one thing if the Dolphins had been more competitive over the last 20 years, and I would just kind of go with that. But my thought is that basically all the guys on the team now, whenever the next time that it is that the Dolphins become a contending team, whenever that might happen, pretty much these guys on the team now aren't going to be on the team.
Right.
I mean, whether it's on defense or offense, I really don't think it's so. It's kind of difficult to get excited about. Oh, well, they're going to win and go to the playoffs and lose. Like, and also, so I said none of these guys are going to be on the team when they're a contending team. This team's not going to win. This team's not going to make an AFC Championship game. This team's not going to win multiple playoff games in a season. This team's going to, you know, they might appear in the playoffs this year, maybe next year, but the odds of them winning a playoff game, I still think are pretty slim, you know. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's hard to get, you know, it just feels like the writing's on the wall, and it's like, well, are we going to get rid of Tua now, or are we going to get rid of him in 4 years? Like, you know, it's just kind of like, can we cut the suspense and can we get to the, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's like, the thing is, you know, do we, you know, and obviously Tua is going to get another year to prove whether he's good enough or not. And, you know, I understand that's where we are. Like, if you're asking me, I think the answer is pretty much obvious. I don't think we need to, and I think that's one of the things
else
I need to learn.
I'll watch like First Things First, or I'll watch some other shows, and they'll be like, well, you know, Tua was 13-8. And I'm like, okay, one of those games Fitzpatrick came in and won because Tua couldn't do anything with the offense. So I'm going to say he's 12-8, not 13-8. I'm not going to give him that win. You know, and they're like, oh, well, he's 12-8. What does that mean? What does that say?
Right.
And they're like, well, of the 21 games he started, I'm like, hey, he could have started more, but he kept getting hurt. Now, some of that's not his fault. It's the offensive line, so I don't necessarily want to totally come down on him for that. But, like, you know, and they're like, oh, well, he won these games. And I'm like, you can't just say that. That's terrible analysis. Like, did you watch the games? Did you look at the box scores on some of these games? And then you're going to tell me they won because of him? I mean, it's not necessarily that they won in spite of him. I mean, some of the games I think they kind of won in spite of him. But, you know, it's not like he was just the driving force behind it. A lot of it was their defense. Their defense would score, and he would do just enough, you know, get a touchdown and a few field goals, and they would win the game. So, yeah, I just, you know, a lot of this is just annoying that people are like, oh, 13-8, and, you know, so he's, you know, there's a way to win with him. And I'm like, yeah, there's a way to win with him, but it's not really sustainable, like, over the long haul. So, but we've got into that enough already. I don't want to rehash stuff we did last season. So,
yeah, no. So where I'm at with the Dolphins this year is, you know, in the back of my mind, I still think they're going to be pretty good. And so, yeah, I'm it's better. It's better for the long term if they don't do as well this year. But I'm going to, when the game's on, I'm going to be rooting for them to win. And
that might end up happening. Like I said, I kind of want the best of both worlds. Can we have them not make the playoffs, but then get some exciting games? Can I just, I'm gonna ride the fence there.
Yeah, and I can always get excited about we can beat the Patriots. Like this isn't
true.
This isn't a where we have no chance.
The Patriots beat the Jets.
Right. It's not like we have no chance against the Patriots. Like we literally have a better team, so we should be able to beat the Patriots. Now I'm going to talk like I'm on the team, but we should. The Dolphins should have a pretty good chance to do that. The problem, like you said, the problem with the Dolphins is there's a couple of things that if they don't go well, the whole thing could fall apart.
Yep.
If Teron Armstead, the left tackle that they just signed, gets injured, that could screw everything up. That could basically and if the problem is with San Francisco's offense, if you watch it, they have to be able to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, then that's basically the key to everything that they do. And the Dolphins don't have as good a defense as San Francisco does.
Yeah.
So it's not as if they're just going to control every game and be able to keep it all in front of them. Yeah, if they can run the ball, that works. But and then when you look at the Dolphins' schedule, the issue, it's the first 6 games for the Dolphins are really tough. The last 6 games are really tough. There's 5 in between there that they have a good shot at winning. But if this goes bad, if they start the first 6 games and they're 2-4, this could go south quickly.
Yep.
And if we get to where, the Dolphins are struggling and we're getting to Thanksgiving, that's a serious problem because I'm just going to go down. These are their last 6 games of the season. Okay. December 4th at San Francisco, December 11th at the Los Angeles Chargers, December 18th at the Buffalo Bills, Christmas Day, they play Green Bay at home in Miami, and then January 1st at New England, and January 8th at home against the Jets. So they're playing 4 out of their last 6 games on the road, all against really good teams.
They're on the road to the Jets?
No, the Jets are at home, but New England and Buffalo are on the road. So they have to play 2 cold weather games up north.
2 is not that good in the cold weather.
Right. So if you watch the Tennessee game where the Dolphins played last year, Tua was having trouble holding onto the ball because it was raining. And so that wasn't even really bad weather. And I got to imagine at least one of those cold weather games.
And also Buffalo could win the Super Bowl this year. Buffalo is really good. So
right. So, maybe we get Buffalo in a driving windstorm like they did last year.
Yeah, then maybe there's a shot.
Maybe they can beat them 6-3, but it's tough. It's not easy. The NFL is not easy. So,
by the way, just real quick, we don't have to go into a long thing about this, but people have been doing this for years where they say, well, when you're a bad team, you get a bad team schedule. When you're a good team, you get a good team schedule. That's not really true anymore, is it?
I mean, it kind of is because you're playing to the level like the Dolphins were 9-8 last year, right? So they've got they would play. It's the 2 games that they pick for you that changes the schedule, right? So they're going to play the 3 teams in their division. They'll play them twice. They're playing the AFC North and the NFC North.
And that was already set, though, right? The AFC and the NFC North, that was already set.
Right. The games that got picked for them they're playing San Francisco and the Chargers.
Okay. So those 2 games can be harder based on what you did last year. Okay.
Right. That's what makes their difficult because did the Rams win the division last year? Yeah, I think they did.
Yes.
So the Rams won their division. San Francisco was second. So we're playing, a first and second place team from their division. So yeah, it's those 2 games that determine what your schedule is. Playing the NFC North is really tough. All those teams are pretty good. The NFC North is not as bad because you've got Detroit and Chicago, but Minnesota and Green Bay are good.
Yeah.
So they didn't get a break on that. They didn't get to play, one of the other divisions that's not nowhere near as good.
Right.
You know, if they'd have got to play the NFC South, you know, where you get to play Atlanta and Carolina, that would be, and not Tampa, but and New Orleans, that might be a little bit easier to win, that's what they had last year. They got to play Carolina and New Orleans, you know, and they won some of those games because they got to play those teams. They don't really have that. They get Houston and Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, those are the two teams that, okay, those games should be winnable. But anyway, all right, so let's move on from that. So you wanted to talk about another topic you brought up I thought was pretty interesting. You wanted to talk about the sports topics that you're tired of hearing about. Which I think you had a really good list.
I'm a hypocrite here because I'm saying I'm tired of talking about this, but I'm sure we'll end up talking about this during the season.
Right.
Okay, so I made a list. So let's go. The Dallas Cowboys. They're not winning the Super Bowl. And matter of fact, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, they're not a contending team. I don't want to hear about Dak Prescott being an elite quarterback and whatever else. No, I really don't care. And it's like, oh, well, you know, they're going to fire Mike McCarthy. Yeah, they're probably going to fire him. Like, you know, I did find it funny. Colin was on with, I guess, a Cowboys reporter, and he was saying that, like, if Mike McCarthy were to make the NFC Championship game, then Jerry Jones would probably give him like a 10-year extension or something like that.
Right.
I'm like, that sounds absolutely right. Let's see, other topics I'm tired of hearing about. Baker Mayfield.
Let's stop on the Cowboys real quick. So okay. yeah, I think this is especially this year, it's really tough to see the Cowboys because they lost some of their players. It's really tough to imagine them being a really good team anyway. They may be saved by their division because their division is bad. They've basically been living off of the fact that their division's bad for 20 years now. So we'll see what happens. They may figure out a way into the playoffs because of that. But right. I think Philadelphia and Washington might be better this year. So I think possible, so I think it's going to be really tough. And that's so funny about Mike McCarthy because Jerry Jones likes to hang on to coaches way too long.
Yeah.
Like he's the one guy in the NFL who what do you keep Jason Garrett for 6 years? I mean, it's insane how long he holds on to coaches. So, you know, coaches shouldn't complain about anything the Cowboys do because Jerry Jones, my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Baker Mayfield. I mean, look, let's be honest. He might not even be the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. I mean, right. Maybe he will get in there. Maybe he'll get in there, but Carolina's not good. Like, Carolina's not going anywhere. So, you know, and he was on Cleveland, and he had one good year with Cleveland. So,
right. Yeah, and he's in, and they put, they put Baker Mayfield in tier 3, so they had him the 19th best quarterback. Yeah. Which, you know, I mean, listen, the 19th best quarterback is not getting you anywhere. But I just find that interesting that they've got Baker Mayfield ahead of Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz and Trevor Lawrence, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know whoever has those quarterbacks would never take Baker Mayfield for them. So these aren't trade value rankings. I realize that.
Right.
There's Baker Mayfield's value is basically, you know, insignificant, doesn't exist at this point. So.
Right. Okay. This one, look, we haven't heard this, but I mean, I just feel like if Tom Brady has a bad game, you're going to hear, is Tom Brady going to retire after this year? You know, and look, here's where I'm at with Tom Brady. Dude, play as long as you fucking want. I really don't care. Okay? Once you left the AFC East, I'm like, dude, do whatever you want. I really don't care. Okay? Play as long as you want. Don't listen to anybody. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can or can't do. Just do it. And I don't really want to get into speculation about it. And also, if you're going to retire and don't do what you did this offseason. You know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I think Brady had it all. I think Brady had it all worked out. I think he was like, all right, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to go, you know, work for the Miami Dolphins, whether I play for them or not, whatever. I think he had it figured out, and then the thing kind of fell apart on him. And so he had to be kind of like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So I think this year it should be much more lined up because he doesn't have to worry about his contract. He can get out of it if he wants. So that's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be like, oh, you're under contract. But yeah, I agree. I don't want to talk. I don't want to spend all this time talking about is Brady going to retire. He probably is, going to retire after this season. Probably. But there's no point in, I don't understand why we're
he's the greatest quarterback of all time. We've already settled this. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame 5 years after he retires. Like, his legacy's set. He's awesome. Great career. Whatever. I'm done.
Yeah, they don't need to. You're exactly right. I felt this way about Tom Brady, like, after he beat the Atlanta in the Super Bowl. It's kind of like, all right, what is the point? Like, what are we talking about anymore? Like, this is the guy's the greatest ever. Everybody acknowledges it. So what's the debate?
Yeah. Lamar Jackson contract extension. I feel like they're going to eventually extend him. I feel like a lot of the reason this is dragged out is because he doesn't have an agent.
Right.
So, I think he's being kind of dumb here. Like, I'm going to bet on myself. It's like, dude, you just got hurt last year. What if you get hurt again?
Right.
But I feel like he'll end up getting, and it's one of those things where, can you win the Super Bowl with him? I don't know. I'd be interested to find out. I think you'll win a lot of games with him. So it's kind of like, what else are you going to do? Like, I think everything would have to line up. But anyway, I feel like the extension will get done eventually, whether it's now or at the end of after this year. So I really don't care.
Yeah, I hate it.
Talk is just kind of.
I hate it, especially in the NFL, because in the NFL the team has all the control, so there's nothing to really talk about. I hated the Dak Prescott thing going on for 2 years. That was ridiculous. I do not want to talk about it. So please, God, let them get a contract done so we don't have to deal with this. Do not franchise tag him after the season, so we have to go through this whole thing all over again. And that's all we're going to talk about. For God's sakes, just give him the damn contract.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, no, we're not going to give you Patrick Mahomes money. Sorry, we're not going to do that. So I think they kind of know. I think they know where they are. It's just a matter of, does he have like a good year this year or a spectacular year?
Right. What else? Mac Jones, dude. I don't want to hear, like, Kevin Wilde's on First Things First. Oh, he's the baby goat, and I'm just like, dude, he's not that good. Okay, he's a right-handed Tua. Okay, and a little less athletic. Like,
and honestly, but that being said, I'd rather have Mac Jones. He's bigger. He's probably got just as good of an arm, and I'd rather have Mac Jones. But again, like you said, we're splitting hairs. So what? He's the 17th best quarterback. Oh, good.
Oh, well, okay.
It's like, Right, yeah, I agree. I don't want to hear about how great Mac Jones is. Like, he's kind of a glorified Kirk Cousins. Like, let's just knock it off.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo. I really don't. I don't really care where he goes. Where's he going to go that's going to make impact? Oh, he's going to go to Seattle. Oh, okay.
Right. That's what I said, and I'm like, people talking about he going to Seattle, and if I'm Garoppolo, I'm like, no, I don't want to go to Seattle. Get the hell out of here. I'll just stay here. Just release me. You know what I mean? That's what I'm doing if I'm him. And I thought Nick Wright made a really good point about Jimmy Garoppolo. So for some reason, Colin Cowherd believes that he doesn't understand why there's no market, or no, he seems to have it figured out why Kevin Durant doesn't have a market in basketball, right? But he doesn't understand why Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't seem to have a market in football. And Nick Wright's like, Colin, every NFL team has had a chance to get him. Nobody does. Nobody's gotten him. Now, and again, I think it's a Baker Mayfield situation. It comes down to his salary. No one wants to pay $25 million for a guy that's probably your backup.
Yeah.
No one's going to give him a long-term contract. Henceforth, there's no market for him. So yes, I understand. Yes, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's fine, but there's nobody going to bat for him because he's not good enough. Period. Yeah. The whole NFL has had every opportunity to get him. Nobody wants to do it. So, that should tell you all you need to know.
Let's see. Next topic, asserting that Tua is a franchise quarterback. I don't know that we really need to get back into this. We kind of went over this, but I mean, I feel like this. If they have a good year this year, that's coming, and I am not here for it. I don't want to hear it. I really don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, we're going to have to. That's going to be a defense. We're going to be defensive about that. We're going to have to, we're going to get into our camps after this, especially if he plays well this season. And it's just going to be the tour supporters are going to be, in full form. So we're really going to have to deal with a lot of nonsense from them, especially if he plays well. But we've staked our claim. Everybody knows where we're at.
Right. Let's see. Thursday night football analysis. Now, what I mean by this is that I don't watch Thursday night football, okay? I'm not staying up late on a Thursday night to watch two banged-up teams just sort of run around and, try to play football when they're too banged up to actually play, okay? I'm done. I'm not doing it.
Right. And they have, who is it? Is Al Michaels doing Thursday night now? I think so.
Again, I don't know. I don't pay attention to this. I don't watch Thursday night football.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah.
Fantasy football analysis. I don't play fantasy football anymore. And also, just side note, guys, no one cares about your fantasy team. Nobody cares about it, okay, except you.
Nope.
No one else cares.
There were times I didn't care about my own fantasy football team, to be honest.
There you go. Exactly. Let's see. Political topics that intersect with football. I feel like we've just had so much of that the last few years. I'm just kind of like, I just want to play football for a few years. We'll get back to other stuff, later on. I'm just kind of done.
Can I throw one in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what's going to happen here is the Deshaun Watson decision is going to come down.
Okay.
The next, it's like, I feel like the NFL is literally timing this. Like, when's the Hall of Fame game? Is it in 2 weeks? Like, whenever, I feel like that's going to coincide with the NFL's first preseason game. Something's going to happen, because what's going to happen is whatever they recommend, whatever this judge recommends to the NFL, he's going to appeal it to try to get less games. So then it's going to be up to Goodell again. So we're going to have to, the concert, it's going to be a week or two of just, oh, well, this isn't enough. Whatever it is, this isn't enough. They should have done more. Why can't they, blah, blah, blah. And listen, I get it. I think he should be suspended. I think they should say you're out for the year, period, done. I think that's what it should be. I don't know what's going to happen, though. So, yeah, just be this is another one of those topics that I'm really not that interested in talking about. If he's playing, great. If he's not, I really don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we need to get ready for that, because that's going to be coming.
They probably are trying to time it. Because I feel like they've been saying it's coming for like weeks.
I'm telling you, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Okay, let's see what else. Defending the Chargers head coach for going for it on fourth down. We talked about this last year, and I'm just like no. Okay, all you people defending him for going for it on fourth down from his own 20 in the first quarter are wrong. Okay, we went into this in detail last season, and I feel like it's going to happen again, and it's going to be like, dude, if you keep doing this, I hope you get fired, because this is ridiculous.
And the thing is, like, his defense wasn't good last year. So at least if the Chargers defense, and he's a defensive coach, so he should be able to make the defense better. If the defense is at least good, then he at least has some kind of leg to stand on. But the problem is, if he doesn't improve the defense, then he's going to look. He looks bad already. He's going to look like a complete moron.
Well, and here's the thing: I don't care how good your defense is. If you keep backing them up like that, there's no defense that can hold up against that.
Yep.
Let's see what else. Oh, I got two more. Okay. Is Brady or Belichick more responsible for the Patriots dynasty? Because my feeling is the Pats are going to suck this year, right? And Brady will be the Bucks. The Bucks division is terrible, so he'll obviously make the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game. Okay. And it's just like, guys, it's pretty clear that it was Brady. I'm not saying Belichick didn't play a part in it, but Belichick wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff without having Brady there. So I don't really want to debate it. Your reaction was just put me to sleep. I really don't want to listen to this.
Yeah, Brady's the greatest quarterback ever, and it's proven in every sport. You don't win without talent, period. Now, there are some things you got to do when you get that talent, but if you don't have it, it don't matter how good of a coach you are.
Yeah. And then this one, I guess, is sort of I feel like this may come up in the middle of the season, later in the season. Where is Sean Payton going to coach next year? You know, and I'm just like, I don't really want to speculate. If he gets hired somewhere, then we can talk about it. But I really don't. You know, I mean, my hope would kind of be, I think it would be great for the NFL if the Chargers head coach. We'll tie this up with other topics. If the Chargers head coach blows up their playoff chances because he can't stop going for it on fourth down, and then they fire the coach, and then imagine Sean Payton and Justin Herbert, like. But see, now I'm doing it. I'm engaging in reckless speculation with no basis in fact or anything. So,
yeah, no. Listen, and by the way, that's going to be by like week 7 when we're talking about these coaches are on the hot seat. Yeah. He's going to be all over every story. Every team that their that stinks this year and their coach isn't any good. Like, let's give the candidates, right? Carolina, obviously, right? Their coach is on the hot seat for sure. That's going to be brought up with. Well, Sean Payton could fix that, you know. I'm trying to think of another team. Atlanta.
Maybe
Atlanta's
Jets,
probably not going to be any good. The
Jets are
I
kind
don't
of
know.
crazy, so who knows?
Right. Yeah, exactly. The Jets could be. I mean, you know, who knows what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
So, you know, if let's say Cleveland has a rough year, you know, I mean, they can blame it a little bit on Deshaun Watson, but let's say they really stink. They're going to sour on that coach pretty fast.
Yep.
So, you know, Arizona. Like, if Arizona starts having a hard time and Kyler Murray gets hurt or something, whatever, they're not in love with Cliff Kingsbury. We could do this all day, you know. So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm tired of talking about where Sean Payton's going to go. Could we just let the damn season play out? They're not going to hire him in the middle of the damn season for any team anyway. Yeah. So, ridiculous.
Yeah. So that concludes my my list of topics I really don't want to hear about. Even though I know I'm going to end up hearing about them.
That's a pretty good list. So did you want to talk about, we'll go through some NBA stuff. Did you want to talk about the Boston Jaylen Brown rumors?
Yeah. Yeah.
So look, here's my thing. Could we, like, when we talk about these trades and NBA trades, and I've talked about this before, could we get into realistic conversations about it? Like, this idea that, they're going to offer him Jaylen Brown and a couple of draft picks, and that'll get you Kevin Durant. I mean, come on, man. Could we just be reasonable here? And then these people, like, I was saying this when Deshaun Watson was talking about getting traded. They're acting like, we'll give him 2 firsts in this player, and then we'll get him. And I'm like, no, okay. You want to get, like, and they're acting like, would you put in Marcus Smart with Jaylen Brown to get Kevin Durant? It's like, yeah, you're going to need that and more, you dumbasses.
Yep.
It's Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, probably some picks, probably another player, probably you're not getting. So that's the thing that drives me nuts about it. And my other take on it is that, hey Boston, why don't you keep this shit in house? Like, don't let it get out that you're talking about Jaylen Brown. Like, the guy's been in trade rumors almost every year of his freaking career.
Yeah.
Like, so you know what's going to happen? He's got 2 years left. You know what's going to happen in 2 years? He's going to be like, well, screw this. They don't like me. You know, they haven't supported me. I'm out of here. So Boston needs to be careful about this shit. You can't be screwing around with a guy who's like, I mean, Jaylen Brown's basically an all-NBA player. You can't be messing around like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like you guys, I mean, you got Brogdon. And basically, I mean, look, if you had just turned the ball over a little bit less last year, you would have won the championship, you know. And I think they'll be better this year just based on all the experience they got last year. So, like, I just feel like if you really want to go get Kevin Durant, then go get him, but don't let it get out, you know. But don't mess around with these crappy offers. It's like, what do you know? It's like, we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna do this and that's gonna get him. It's like, no, you know, and that's why there was the report, I guess, that the Heat are kind of moving forward with their team as it's constructed. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, you know, Pat Riley's just gonna stop trying to think of a way to get Kevin Durant. Like, I think he's gonna keep trying to do that. But at this point, there's nothing, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, guys, nothing's going on because both sides, you know, in terms of the Nets and all the other teams, are far apart on whatever what they want, what teams are willing to give up, and what the Nets actually want. So It's just going to take some time. So, like, when people are like, oh, there's no way the season's going to start with Kevin Durant on the Nets, and I'm like, no way? Like, maybe he will get traded. Maybe it slows down for a little bit, and then maybe somebody comes up with a gigantic offer and they get him. But, like, no, like, I think there's a pretty good chance at this point that he starts the season on the Nets. I still think they could end up trading him, but people just, I feel like people acting like it's a foregone conclusion one way or the other are just like, you know, like on Hoops Tonight, Jason Timpf is like, oh no, they're going to trade him. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? When? Like, you know, what team's going to get him at this point?
Right. And it's the easiest thing in the world to say that. Like, yeah, you can say you think, you know, that's going to happen. We don't know that. Like, you can't. It's like, to me, it reminds me of like Kawhi Leonard, like when he was leaving Toronto, and you're like, people are trying to tell you what he's going to do. Nobody knows what Kevin Durant's going to do. Kevin Durant's entered that territory where we have no idea what he's going to do. Like, it's completely unpredictable at this point. Like, what also, he's done.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what do you think he's been doing since the offseason started? I mean, he basically said, I want to be traded, and then he's probably just out somewhere enjoying his offseason. And, you know, fighting with people on Twitter. Like, I don't think he's paying attention to some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't. So, yeah, anybody who tries to tell me they know what he's going to do, it's ridiculous. Like, you can. I realize on all these sports shows you got to stake your claim somewhere. That's fine, but you're not going to get me to believe any legitimacy to anything that you're saying just because, well, we think this will happen. Look, and this was going on like a few weeks ago. You brought up Jason Timpf or whatever, and he was saying the Lakers blew it. They should have given up those picks to get Kyrie. And I'm like, they didn't blow anything. If you're Brooklyn, right, it doesn't make any sense to trade Kyrie unless you have to trade Durant.
Yeah.
If Durant's if you get to, you know, it gets too close to training camp and you think Durant might stay there, well, you're not going to do anything with Kyrie because the thing is you're not getting anything for Kyrie anyway. So there's no reason to even do anything with it. And Kyrie signed took the option like, oh, I'm good. Like, he was ready to go. Like, I'm going to play for the Brooklyn Nets. So I think we're acting like, oh my God, they got to get this stuff done now. No, they don't.
Yeah.
It's July. It's going to be August. They have plenty of time. Training camp's not till October. Like, it'll be fine. You know, so I think the consternation about it, and I think it's gotten quiet because I think Brooklyn wants a lot for Kevin Durant and Utah wants a lot for Donovan Mitchell. Yep. And there's just not a deal that fits right now. So, you know, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. But yeah, it might be during the season. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happened. Like, and people have pointed out, I don't think Durant's the kind of like Ben Simmons. He's not going to sit out. You know, he wants to play. He's already 34. Like, he's missed a bunch of games the last few years. He wants to play. So, and we don't know the context, and nobody's giving it. None of these NBA reporters don't know. Well, did Kevin Durant say, "Trade me? I'm done with you. I'm done with this," or did he go in and say, "Listen, if you can find a trade to get me out of here, that'd be great." Like, where is he? Like, is he literally, there's no way this is ever going to work? Or is this, well, let's try this and then we'll see how it goes? You know? So, and we don't know his feelings on that. He's not telling anybody. So, you know, all of this speculation is just, it's kind of nonsense. Right.
So anyway, did you have another topic or?
I guess I could do I had a rant.
Well, no, let's talk about this real quick. So just real quickly, Charles Barkley, it came out today that he's not going to go to the Live Tour, for the Live Golf Tour, which again is another confusing step. I never got this from the beginning. Like, I understand David Feherty going to Live Golf because, you know, he played on the tour, you know, or on the PGA Tour, and you know, that's what he does. He's a golf analyst. Charles Barkley
was weird. I didn't get
Charles Barkley is a basketball analyst. I did think, though, what I want to give Charles Barkley credit for was that he came out on Dan Patrick's show this week and was like, "Yeah, listen, this is about the money. I don't understand these people acting like it's not. Like, I don't understand why. He's like, yeah, I'm going to talk to him. Like, they're going to offer me a shit ton of money. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to consider it. But he also said it's going to take a lot for me to go to them because, number one, I already have a job. If I take an offer with them, I'm probably going to lose all my endorsements. So I have to think about how much money that, right? So there's like, how much money is it going to take? And Dan Patrick, of course, wants Barkley to tell him exactly how much money he makes, which, Barkley's smart enough not to do that.
Right.
But, he's like, what if they gave you $60 million, And so, but today Barkley announced, that he's staying with TNT. He wanted to get this over with, within a week or two and basically say, because he didn't want to leave Turner, hanging as to what he was going to do. So he basically said, which tells me, and basically they never made him an offer, is what he says. So that tells me, now, and listen, I don't understand, like, this confuses me about sports in general. Is anybody watching a game because of who's broadcasting it? Like, I find it really strange that, like, okay, so we're going to pay, like, Amazon Prime or whatever, they paid a bunch of money to get Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Are people really going to, well, we got to watch this game because, it's Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Really? Like, are less people going to watch because it's whoever it is, Greg Olson and I can't remember the guy's name, who does, they're going to be a team, whatever.
Okay.
So it's like, are less people really going to watch because, and it's like, well, the Monday Night Football broadcast was whatever. Were the viewership really changing because it was Jason Witten and Booger McFarland? Like, does anyone really care about that?
No. It's also, I think Dan Le Batard on his show was talking about this, and like I think he was making the point that they're paying these guys all this money. Well, the money's got to come from somewhere, and that means that they're not going to be employing as many reporters and writers and things like that. And it's like, and it's kind of a similar thing in just the rest of the media where like they'll pay these personalities all this money, and it's like, and then they cut costs elsewhere, and it's like, especially with sports, it's just kind of like, why are you doing this? I don't really think people, care that much, And I mean, look, for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and all those other guys, like, negotiate for as much money as you can get. If they're willing to pay it to you, it's, more power to you. But at the same time, it's kind of like, why are these networks paying this much? I don't really think they need to. I guess with the Tony Romo contract, I guess this kind of spiraled out of control. I mean, like, I guess with like Jim Nantz, like for CBS, I mean, he does football and he does golf and I guess he just does those two things. But I mean, he does a lot for that network. So it's like, okay.
Basketball, he does the
that's right. He does basketball as well. Yeah, so he does a ton for that network. So I'm kind of like, all right, I guess I can kind of see that. But yeah, some of these other guys, I don't know. It's kind of odd that they're paying him all this money.
Yeah, you're doing, like, you're paying Joe Buck and Troy Aikman to do like 20 games or something.
Right.
It's kind of, and I said this when Tom Brady was apparently got this big contract with Fox. It's like, they're just doing it to say that they have Tom Brady. I don't think those guys are driving people to the product. So that just kind of makes me laugh.
Well, it's kind of like on these analysis, these pregame shows for the NFL. It's like, how many guys do we need analyzing football on the pregame show? I feel like it used to be like one or two, then it became 3 or 4. Now it's like 5 or 6. Now we got multiple desks, we got multiple angles, we got all this. It's like, do we really need all this crap?
Right. Right. So, all right, man. Let's flaunt your journalistic integrity for us.
Oh, here we go. This is kind of probably ridiculous that I'm saying this, that I'm making this criticism, even though we have a podcast and whatever. Here we go. So this week, something that I've been thinking about for quite a while, I think became really clear to me. And that the thing that became clear to me is there's way too much sports talk and analysis. So think about it. Years ago, we had newspapers, we had local news coverage of sports, and that was basically it. Then we had ESPN on top of that, starting, I guess, in the 80s. Then we got numerous NFL pregame shows on like Fox and CBS and NBC and, through the years, the different networks that have broadcast football. And, of course, you got NBA pregame shows, NBA postgame shows. Then you get Fox Sports 1, you get numerous websites, then you get podcasts, then you get debate shows, then you add in talk radio shows. And I understand that networks and websites and podcast hosts, they need content. They need to create content, some of them almost every day or at least every week. They need things to talk about. They need hot takes. They need strong opinions. But let's just be honest for a second. How many topics do we need to have strong opinions about? How many topics deserve more than a minute or two of conversation? How many topics are actually topics and not just reckless speculation? How much of the sports analysis and coverage is actually good? Or really good? I don't know, 5%, 10% at best? How much time are people spending crafting their opinions and analysis? How reliable is all this reporting? How much of this is just information being relayed by someone who's connected to a team who's trying to promote their agenda? How much of this is actually entertaining? In short, what the hell are we doing with our time? Why are we filling our heads with? What are we filling our heads with? Why the hell do I listen to Skip Bayless? I don't do that much, just sometimes. Look, things are only going to get worse. I'm not dumb enough to think that we're going to be able to get less sports coverage, or that we're going to rethink the 24-hour news cycle. But I'll close with this. I'm a huge believer in freedom of speech. I think discussion and debate helps us to better understand issues and filter out the good from the bad. But the founders of this country who promoted free speech did so at a time when there were only newspapers. They could not have imagined all the bullshit being pumped out on a daily basis by TV, radio, and the internet. I don't think all of this is making us smarter. So my advice to you is to be careful what you read and be careful what you listen to. Cut out the bad and only focus on the good. And maybe, just maybe, avoid sports analysis for a few days or a few weeks. I think we'll all be fine not hearing more speculation about where Kevin Durant may or may not be playing next year. And let me let you in on a big secret. The people speculating on this, they only know a little bit more than you and I. End scene.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. It's I think there's so much out there that we really have to be very selective with what we consume. Because to a certain extent, what you consume does, I don't want to say it becomes you, but it does seep into what you're doing every day. If you're watching reality shows, right? Yeah. That can, people who really get into those, that can have a similar effect to doing drugs. It can have a similar effect on your brain.
Yeah. So basically my thing is just just remember that a lot of this stuff is just entertainment, and just take it as entertainment. Don't take it seriously. Don't get pissed off about it. It's just, listen to some of these shows and like, oh, well, if they move this guy onto this team, that team's going to win the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, pal. Just laugh about it and get on with your day. Don't some of this stuff don't really take seriously.
Yeah, I agree. It's it is out of control, but there are good things. The good things are, look at this. We have a nice space where we can, talk about these things. So it's not all bad, but sometimes it does create like pockets of where people are, defiant on one side or the other, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that the Cowboys get picked to win the Super Bowl every year when they really have, there's no chance of that happening, and yet people continue to consume it
because they're the Cowboys, most overrated of all time.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and so I think that's where we kind of fit in, is looking at those things that everybody's taking for granted as this is gospel, and we're kind of like, really? Is it?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I think that's kind of what we're here to do, is kind of challenge that stuff. And
and just think about it this way: like when people have to fill up space, they have to fill up a page, or they have to fill up time where they're talking about something. I mean, there really isn't that much to talk about in sports every day. There legitimately isn't. Some days there are, like an NFL Sunday or whatever, or the Monday after. But a lot of times there's not much to talk about. They just have to fill up time. They need to just please their advertisers to make them keep paying them money. So,
Yeah, and listen, I get the entertainment piece of it. When I criticize people who have their own show or on TV or radio, like I maybe criticize their opinion, but I'm not criticizing why they have to say it. I get, like, you have to be entertaining. I understand why Colin Cowherd brings people on to just so he can further his point by just letting them do whatever they're going to do. So I totally get the entertainment part of it, and it's much more entertaining if Colin says, "Hey, let's trade Anthony Davis." I don't think he really believes that 100%. I think he believes it enough to where it's plausible, but I don't think he is all in on it, which is fine. I get the entertainment piece of it. You got to do that. You got to stir it up a little bit every now and then.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So, episode 43.